Welcome back to the Sage Life podcast. I'm your curator, Elise Johnston, here again with Bill Potler. In this week's story, Bill invites us to explore the unfolding, a reflection on what happens when we stop trying to control life and instead begin to watch it with awareness. From the hand that unfolds the blanket to the billiard balls in motion, to the idea that we are all made of stardust, Bill challenges us to see ourselves as active participants in a universe that's still creating itself. Bill, you began with this quote: "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." Why did that particular line feel like the right doorway into this week's story?
Um, we come into this world as an individuated spirit from the field of consciousness. And then we come into this world and assume a lot of roles. And we think those roles are ourself, but they're really just roles. And so as we start to let go, not that we have to stop our roles, but just perceive that our roles are not who we are, then we start to realize that we're this piece of spirit, this piece of the consciousness of God here on earth. And a lot of times it's not the roles that we have a problem with that cause us a lack of understanding. It's our perception that we are the roles. So when we realize that we're not the roles, then we get more in touch with our true spirit, with our intuition, with the field, the greater field of consciousness. When I do this, I'm talking about staying aligned, right? Remembering who we are, putting our members back together. And then when we can do that, then we're really acting with purity and authenticity from the core spirit, from God, from the field of consciousness. That core, that I don't even want to call it values. I don't even know if I want to call it goodness. That core energy, that core consciousness can flow through us unencumbered by the roles and the things that we think we are and the values that we think we have in this world. And when that spirit of God can flow through us, then we're in the perfect, authentic co-creation with God. And pure spirit can act into this great cosmos. And that's why I put that quote in there.
I love it. So, what does that word unfolding mean to you personally? Like, how is that different from just saying growth or change?
Um, this is my belief system, obviously. But we use terms to try and describe what God is. And one of the terms that through religions and through the ages that we've learned or we've used to explain God is the Alpha and the Omega, kind of the beginning and the end. And the way I perceive God, and I think on our question list is about Stardust today, but regardless, and we're always learning about what's going on in this ecosystem that we live in, and we use our telescopes to look back in time and figure out whether the Big Bang and how all this happened. But my belief is, and I could give you a lot of reasons why I believe this, but I don't think that's important. My belief is that there is some consciousness, okay, that started all of this, okay? And so when you think about it that way, it's not like the consciousness just created and let it go. In a way, consciousness, the field of consciousness, God, divine, whatever term you want to use. I think I'm going to stick with FOC, or field of consciousness, for right now. When the field of consciousness began all this, it's not like it just boom and then it let go. Okay, the consciousness, it permeates everything. Okay, we have free will whether we want to work in unison with the consciousness or not. But if you just take like the Big Bang, and all this stuff started flying and burning and stars were created, and then it just keeps going. It's an unfolding. Even the fact that the way we look at our universe right now, which may or may not be right, but they say that the universe is inflating. Okay. So literally it all started and then it got released and it's unfolding. Okay. And we're all playing a co-creation part in that unfolding. And ultimately, I think it all comes back to itself. Now, that's a much longer discussion that I don't even know that I've got my head wrapped around yet. Because it's not like it all folds back in. And but there is this point where any one of us is the universe. And that's another discussion too. But when you can step back and kind of drop some of your roles and just watch everything, this is probably the biggest thing. It all unfolds. The seasons, birth, death, relationships, everything's just unfolding. It's once you see it, you can't unsee it. I don't know. Does that answer our question?
I think so. So let's talk about that a little more, about your metaphor about the blanket. You ask whether it's us unfolding or if it's God. What do you hope listeners take away from that image about agency and surrender?
Yeah. If you think about, you're sitting here unfolding a blanket on a bed, just that simple movement, and then you think what animates you. Okay, and in my, in my belief system, it's this consciousness, right? It's God. It's that animates us. And I've talked about before that the word soul comes from the word anime, I think in Latin, which means to animate. So our souls, our spirits are animated by God, by the divine, by the field of consciousness. But if you're unfolding that blanket, you might have chosen to unfold that blanket, but the consciousness that's giving you the power to unfold that blanket is beyond yourself. And at the same time, it is yourself. So you have to look at everything that's going on, and you see how little control you have, maybe even no control, but you can make decisions, okay? And we do have free will. And that's why we can be called co-creators, because we have that free will. And so as this whole thing unfolds, we can choose to participate in a way that's in alignment and with the higher good of the all, or not. And either way, it's okay, because it's all going to unfold over this huge piece of eternity. And consciousness at some level is learning how to create, okay? And we as a piece of consciousness are learning how to create. And actually what happens here, and I wrote about this in the last story, and I told you we might want to do a short on this, but because I'm here, I'm going to talk about it. And that is that the way I view things is that energy, the dark energy, the chaotic energy is like raw energy. And then the light is the raw dark energy that's refined. And let's say that you've got some type, let's say, just pretend you've got an addiction problem, or I've got an addiction problem, okay? And that energy that draws me to that next drink or whatever it is, there's 1,000 addictions, right? Shopping or whatever. That energy that draws me to that is powerful God conscious energy. But in this world, and maybe beyond, we have to learn how to take the dark energy, that energy that drives us towards some type of addiction. When that energy is refined and harnessed per se, maybe not harnessed is a good word, but directed, refined, then we can take that energy and use it to create goodness. And so that's this duality, this dark energy, light energy, the taking the chaotic and refining it. And that's one of the things that we're supposed to do while we're here on this earth, is learn in this thick, heavy, gravity-laden environment how to take the chaotic energy and refine it, so that as we continue to be co-creators with God, with the divine, with the field of consciousness, that we will all continue over time, if there is such a thing, to refine our ability to create, so that everything we create becomes more like a heaven than a hell per se.
So you kind of talk about the same sort of ideas in your billiard table scene, which reminded me a lot of Men in Black, one of the opening scenes. Um, so that vision captures both chaos and order, divine order at the same time. So do
Uh-huh.
you see human life as mostly guided by unseen forces, or do you, and I mean, I know you just touched on this, but do you think we still have meaningful control?
Oh, absolutely. We have a lot of control. I mean, look at the world around us. I mean, look at everything we've built, whether it's physical things or religions or governments. Okay. Uh, I mean, we chose to do all this. Um, so, but the the force behind it all, the consciousness, the power. I mean, that doesn't. We didn't gen that up ourselves, but we are a part of it because we're an individuation of it. So, I don't know. Did that answer the question? I don't even remember what the question is.
It's about whether or not we have meaningful control.
We definitely have meaningful control. But well, let's go back to the billiard ball scenario. Okay. I'm, and this is not a perfect example. All these are just examples, right? Um, but if we're all balls on a billiard table, okay, and then somebody comes up and has a stick and they hit one of us and we hit another one, okay, think about that, the person that's got that stick or the arm that's got the power to push that stick into a ball and then a ball hits another ball. That's almost like field of consciousness power. It's almost like, the hand of God coming out and using that pool cue. And think about the billiard table. It's a plane, not an airplane, but a geometric plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and we roll across it when when that power gets pushed through us, and we don't really have control per se of whether we get hit or not. And this is not a perfect example with billiards, but we do have this force that's driving us through. And then we're knocking against each other. Okay. Um, and I mean, that's very much like life. I mean, just like you and I, we're bouncing off each other right now. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's what the creation is. It's the life force coming through us bouncing off each other with free will, deciding how to create, but there are rules, right? Billiards have rules. If you don't understand that using your emotion and your intelligence with a particular intention is how we create in this environment, then you're not going to be very good at creating. Okay. But once you understand some of the universal laws, like the law of creation, then you can use that. And then when you align that for goodness and love and wholeness and holiness, that's when you create in a more, I'm not going to say perfect, but in a more symmetric and beautiful way.
Interesting. Sometimes I wonder if other people are the ball or the stick.
I think it's a very fair question. In the billiard uh, playing field, the plane has got a perimeter, right? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
like us being on this earth. I mean, you could look at our lives as being the plane, the balls on the plane, but it's inside a limitation, right? Just like our spirits are inside the limitation of our bodies right now, per
Mm-hmm.
se. Okay. They are and they aren't. So you can look at it, and what is the billiard hole that you go into? Is that the dark, chaotic energy? Is that the cave where you go to hide and remember who you are? I mean, it could be lots of things, right?
I like that analogy a lot. So you like to connect scientific concepts like the Big Bang and cosmic inflation with spiritual ideas of divine energy. It's like, how do you reconcile those two perspectives? Do you maybe see them as describing the same truth, but with different language?
Say that to me one more time,
Um,
please.
the scientific concepts of the Big Bang Theory and cosmic inflation, which you talked about earlier,
Right?
and you connect that with spiritual ideas of divine energy. And I was wondering if it's really the same idea, the same core truth. We're just using different words to describe it. You and I are always talking about how language is
Yeah.
important.
Language is important and so limiting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I use this example all the time. I tell you, you think about a tree. Our listener can think about a tree. Imagine a tree. Imagine your tree. And then I say, I'll imagine my tree and you'll imagine your tree. We're all imagining our tree. Those trees are very different. And so when I say to the word tree to you, I mean, the meaning is completely different. Your meaning that you receive it with is completely different than the meaning that I sent it with. And words are just labels for concepts and things that are not accurate. And so our language is I don't know, it never describes what's going on, which is beautiful in a way because it's in the present moment when you can, it's in the present moment where everything happens. And that's actually the story. I just got done writing yesterday. So we don't need to go there, but that's what's rolling around in my mind.
Excellent. A little foreshadowing.
Yeah. And so, and to just go back to the, cosmic inflation and the Big Bang and all that, a quick explanation, which I put in my story, and that is that scientists believe that the universe is inflating, it's getting bigger. Okay. But inside that growth or that expansion, the energy is not diluting. Okay. If you take a glass of water and you put lemon and sugar in it, and you have lemonade, it tastes great, right? But if you
Mm-hmm.
take that same amount of lemon and sugar and put it in 5 gallons of water, the lemonade's going to be very diluted. Okay. And so that's what's going on in our universe. The universe is getting bigger. We're going from a glass of water to 5 glasses of water or 5 gallons of water, but the lemonade concentration is staying the same. Okay. And that one thing points back to that there was an energy that was, I'm going to call it all powerful before the Big Bang ever started. So that's kind of my point. I guess it was in last week's story that um, that this field of consciousness has always been there. It's an eternal alpha and omega consciousness.
It's such a fascinating concept. So I know you wanted to talk about Stardust. You remind us in your story that our bodies are literally made of stardust. So what do you hope that embracing that realization changes in how we see ourselves or each other?
You know, the most important thing is And we think we're just these people stomping around on this planet. But most of us have lost the concept that this is one huge field of consciousness, okay, that is exploring itself and um, and completely enmeshed with each other. And especially we can see it inside this particular realm that we're in right now is we breathe in and we breathe out. And the carbon dioxide that we breathe out is absorbed by the plants. And then that creates nutrients and things for us to eat. And so this concept of that we're pieces of stardust over this billions of years, what, 13.8 billion or whatever it is. And the fact that the Grand Canyon took, I don't know, 10 million years for the river to wash through that, the water to wash through that. We are so connected. I mean, the fact that we didn't have sunlight for a week, this whole planet's gone. The rain that waters everything, and that water that we have to drink to stay alive. We can only go through days without water, 3 minutes without air, 30 days without food. That's Bear Grizzle, the naturalist. He says he does the 3-3-3 thing, and it's pretty accurate. I mean, obviously, it can change just a little bit, but we forget how connected we are. We're putting families for a reason. The dependency is important in this realm because it's one of the things we learn how to share and take care of each other, and that teaches us about love. So I just bring the Stardust thing up is to expand us out of these itty bitty little worlds that we live in, where we're going to watch some TV and we're going to hop in our car and we're going to go to work, and even going, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but even going to the grocery store, we are so disconnected from how that food gets to us. I mean, when we at one point in time, everybody grew their own food and we hunted. I know you and I have talked about you went hunting with your dad for squirrels, but he ate those squirrels, and poor little squirrels. I know you didn't like that part, but we get so mono-focused and we forget just how all this is operating together. And the importance is not that we came from Stardust, but to realize that we're all little bitty pieces of this huge cosmos. And when we forget that, we get petty. And that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to get petty. We want to stay in the expansive love.
Man, lots to think about there. So you quoted Edgar Casey in your story this week, saying that patience is one of Earth's 3 dimensions. I joke a lot about not having any patience, but that's beside the point. Why do you think patience is such a spiritual force in the unfolding process?
Because until you have patience, you can't watch the unfolding. My story that I wrote yesterday is obviously washing through my brain. But, we go back to the tree thing. I mean, maybe you've got a tree in your front yard. It's a big oak tree or whatever. But you walk by it every day. You don't really even pay attention to it. I mean, it's a big tree. It's beautiful. It shades the house. You have to rake the leaves, whatever. But that tree is a living organism that has been there for 20 or 30 or 100 years. And it's for it to stay alive, it needs us. And for us to stay alive, we need it. But tell me the question again, because I'm about ready to go there.
It was about patience. And why is patience such a spiritual force?
Yes. So until you can step back and patiently watch the unfolding, it's like a busybody in the world. I don't mean that ugly, but I guess I've learned over time to, I can't really control anything. I have free will and I can act into the world, but I can't control anything. But when you release control, okay, then you can step back and watch the unfolding. And having patience to watch the unfolding allows the unfolding to happen in the most positive manner that it can. Without you trying to control it, without you, meaning me, meaning us, right? Without pushing on it, without having all these judgments about when it's going to happen and, when is my child going to do this, or when I'm going to get this much in my bank account, or when am I going to accomplish this? All these things that we think about all the time. If we just get up, it's like gardening. If you just get up and you till the soil and you put the seeds in, and maybe you give it a little bit of fertilizer or water, and you make sure that it's in the sun for the right amount of sun that particular seed needs, and it's planted in the right season, because obviously some seeds are spring seeds and some seeds are fall seeds, right? And you just do the steps every day without worrying about the outcome. Okay. Patience gives you that ability. And that doesn't mean that you don't act, and that doesn't mean that you don't have free will, because you do. But ultimately, the outcome is no longer up to you. Okay. And you know that the outcome will be perfect however it turns out, because everything is perfect all the time, even though it doesn't look very perfect. And then when you get to a point where you can hold both these things, like Rumi says, meet me out in the field. I don't know what he says, but it's the poem about the great wagon where good and bad are, are not there anymore, because there is no judgment. So if you can grasp onto the patience and just do your piece every day without judgment, without control, with a purpose, but being okay when that purpose changes because all the billiard balls are hitting each other all the time. That's when you can get peaceful, but you also get powerful. So
It's really interesting. You make me think about how many times I try to control the outcome. I have to think about that. So you also quoted Lao Tzu, and his quote suggested that transformation requires release. So, what do you think are some of the hardest things people have to let go of in order to become who they're actually meant to be?
everything, um, you have to, let me say the way to do this first. And that is, I always preach about quiet time. You have to have quiet time. But the other thing is, you have to continually do self inquiry. That is very, very important. Um, so, I mean, think of everything that we're conformed to in this world. We're conformed to religions, we're conformed to loving our country, we're conformed to, making money, or I don't know. There's hundreds of them. I mean, uh, I don't know. I've tried to let go of so many of them, I can't even think of them anymore. But uh, that right and wrong, okay? Right and wrong's a good one to start off with because we're always going, oh, that's wrong, that's right. No, really, wrong and right are a judgment, okay? Really boil stuff down to it's either an act of love or it's not an act of love. But right and wrong is judgment. Um, so when you let go of your personal roles, you let go of judgment. Tell me what the question is again.
What do you think we need to let go of to become who we're meant to be?
Yeah. Okay. So you let go of your roles, you let go of judgment, you look at everything that you do. Okay. And, being right. Okay. I mean, let go of being right. But all these things. And when you boil all this down and you boil all the rules off and all the things that we're supposedly ascribed to, really, we're just the Spirit of God acting into the world. And that is all we are. I mean, we're part of God creating the universe. And I don't know. It's just that's just it.
I've been working lately on trying to delete the need to be right. I want to let go of that. So you mentioned self-inquiry. Like, do you have a question that you like to ask yourself? Something
Um,
our listeners might use?
well, I mean, I'll give you an example of last night. Late yesterday afternoon, I worked all day, happened to be in the panhandle right now of Florida. And so I had just an hour before dark, and I walked uh, down the block and across the street and went to the beach, which I love. Um, and had some other things I was going to do after that. And so I'm sitting on the beach and I'm looking at the water. I saw some dolphins out there. That was beautiful.
Nice.
It was overcast. The water was calm. I was looking at all the different colors of the water and the sky. And if you look at like a lake or the ocean, and then there are clouds on top of it, you know, you start to wonder, I mean, what's really up and down? What's really space and earth? That they look, they look very similar. I have a friend that says all of space is water. Um, uh, and really, if you look at all the space we are in this world, it all has water in it. Every bit of air we breathe, everything has water in it. So it's kind of interesting if you want to go there. But anyway, back to some sitting there. But then in the back of my mind, I was thinking, wow, I got to get this accomplished. And I got this going on. And I was trying to quiet myself. And I don't remember the question, but it doesn't matter anymore. And I closed my eyes and I just listened to the waves. They weren't great big waves. They were just small waves. But there are lots of different wave sounds. There's kind of the wave that crests and kind of crashes on the beach. There's this little wave that whenever the wave comes in a certain way, it creates this long pocket across the surface of the beach like a horizontal pocket, and it makes a different sound. And I didn't really want to start counting because then I was going to identify too much with trying to the mathematics of all of these different, sounds. But there were many of them, more than six. And then I'm like, I'm not even going to keep counting. And they weren't perfectly repeated. They weren't repeated in order, but they kept happening. All these different ways the waves hit the sand and hit each other. The water hits each other. And now I don't remember what the question was. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let's move on to the next one, which I think is really related.
Do you know the last question? Can you tell me the last question? So I think I had a finality there.
So, how do you practice
self-inquiry?
Yeah, self-inquiry.
Got it. So as I was sitting there on the beach, I was listening to the waves, starting to count them. I go, is it really important to count them or just to listen to them? Okay. And I said, and when I closed my eyes, obviously that's shut. And that's something I do a lot. Close your eyes and it shuts this whole visual sensory system down, really drives you back into yourself. Because when you close your eyes, it's the darkness, and now you're pushing yourself back into yourself. And so, I closed my eyes and listened to the waves, and because I was asking myself, I know what I'm going to do after this, and I know all the things that I need to do. This was yesterday, all the things I need to do today, and the things that I was going to do last night. I knew them all. So why was I sitting there thinking about? Okay. I was not staying in the present moment. And so that's what self-inquiry does. If you continue to ask yourself questions and you look at what's going on, you stay more in the present moment. When you can stay in the present moment, you can stay joyful, because the only thing that we have is the present moment. This very present moment is the only thing that we have. What happened 30 seconds ago is gone. What's going to happen 30 seconds from now is not here yet. All we have is the present moment. So self-inquiry drives us back to present moment.
That's beautiful. You really kind of answered my next question, which was, How do you personally practice watchful participation in your daily life? And I think your beach example is perfect analogy for that.
Yeah. And you gotta, and what you do at the beach, uh this actually drives me a little crazy. And this is judgment, right? I go to the beach, I don't ever take music, I don't ever take alcohol. I take my frisbee sometimes. Didn't last night. Uh, but I see these people walking on the beach, talking on their phones, listening to loud, blaring music, either in their iPods or with their big stereo systems, which that drives me crazy. And I love music. Uh, and they're not really enjoying the present moment. They've come to the beach to enjoy the beach, but they're doing the same thing that they would do at home, just in a different environment. So you've got to quiet yourself. I do retreats all the time, electronic retreats. I do some fasting. I spend time in nature. I go places without my phone all the time. So as you quiet all that stuff down, then things change.
As you were talking about that, I was thinking about what it might be like to go to the beach or wherever with a friend and commit not to speak for 24 hours, to just be in communion with the person, with your surroundings, but no conversation, no music, just experience. Might have to try that sometime.
I went on a silent retreat for 3 days. This is a long time ago with a couple of guys that I knew from church, run by and it was in South Alabama, run by some sisters that lived in the country. And they had this little, I don't know, establishment down there in a little church. And they ran a silent retreat. And so for 3 days, we didn't talk uh, really at all. And on the way home, the four of us were in the car, and somebody goes, and we were being quiet. We really didn't have anything to say. We'd gotten into the being quiet. So and guys, a lot of times guys don't talk that much anyway. And uh, so we're not saying anything. Somebody goes, "What are we going to tell our wives when we get home about what happened?" And we're like, I have no idea. We didn't talk for 3 days. We're not talking now. I guess we're going to tell them that we didn't talk. It's just, I don't know. The silence is, people don't sit in the silence. The silence, I I have a lot of silence. I have a lot of alone time, but it's mandatory for me at this point in my life and probably always will be. But self-inquiry in the silence, uh, when you stop the commotion, you sit in the silence, the wisdom starts to pour out. Not your personal wisdom, but the wisdom of God, of the divine, of the field of consciousness. And and things get a lot calmer, they get a lot sweeter. So
Well, that kind of follows right into my next question.
okay.
But you're anticipating my questions this morning, sir.
How about that? That's spirit, not me.
Oh, if your listeners finish this episode wanting to experience their own unfolding, what first step would you suggest they take? Something small but meaningful.
Yeah. Um, put yourself in the silence. And if you're not used to it, it's going to drive you a little crazy at first. I've got a beautiful rainstorm going on outside right now too. The trees are blowing and can see the raindrops and hear the wind. But put yourself in the silence and listen to how chaotic your mind is. Okay. And all the things that have happened to you have happened to me, whether we've been treated poorly or whether we've been treated wonderful. Those are not things that you carry with you anymore. Let your mind get quiet. Every time there's I don't remember what it's called. I think it's some type of contemplative meditation that was developed by a monk out in Colorado, a Catholic monk. And he says, pretend that you're sitting on the bottom of a river, like in the water on the bottom of the river. And every time you have a thought, it's like a bubble. You just release it. And it goes up to the surface and floats away. A lot of little things you can do like that. But just as a thought comes up, look at the thought, release the thought. The next thought comes up, look at the thought, release the thought. Kind of like I was doing at the beach, Started thinking about what am I going to do later? Nope, not going to do that. Release that thought. That will take care of itself later on. Release the next thought. Release, the ways that you've been harmed. We hold on to the ways that we've been harmed. And then we build these walls around us so that won't happen again. And I'm not saying, be stupid and go out in the middle of the night with, big chunk of money in your pocket in the dark in the, bad part of town or whatever. If there's a bad part of town or not, that's a whole nother story. But, don't do stupid things, but just release, because you are not, your experiences, but you are not your experiences. And so once you can release all of that, how I was treated as a child, how you were treated as a child, how this happened, how this spouse treated me, how my friend treated me, how this person floated in my life and out of my life, and realize that you were just the essence of God. You were just consciousness experiencing what is right here in front of you. I mean, then it all gets beautiful.
What a great way to wrap up today's episode. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alese. I appreciate your time and patience with me.
Oh, always. Well, for our listeners, that's the end of our conversation for today. So until next week, I hope you'll go ahead and subscribe to this channel, or at least give us a like. And if you need to reach out to Bill and share your story with him, how should they do that?
Go to my website, Sage Life, SAGE, Life, LIFE, with Bill.com, and the YouTube page, which you're probably on if you're watching this, is Sage Life with Bill also. Not also, but Sage Life with Bill. And from my website, you can ask me questions if you want to. If you watch a YouTube, you can comment. I always, I try to always. respond to anybody that comments. And, you know, I love you all. You know, the divine in me honors the divine in all of us.
Thank you for listening.